Shalom and welcome back. Now we're going to learn about roots. So we're going to have to get to the root of the problem here, okay? So what are the major problems you're going to find? Well, here's the thing I want you to understand with regard to learning roots. There's not a lot of books out there, at least the things that focus primarily on roots. You'll find some good dictionaries. Brown, Driver, and Briggs has some good aspects of looking at the roots, and so does Davidson, and so does Ernest Klein, and so does Collier Baumgartner. Those are okay, but they're horrible dictionaries when it comes to just looking at the words that the roots are underneath, because you're kind of almost like taken off into the wrong direction in some cases, because they're not translating the best idea of what these are. You know, it's like if you read a Webster's dictionary, you get paper. What is paper? And it describes to you what paper is. And so like you really go, oh, that's what paper is. And that's kind of what it should be. And that's why I like going back to Evan Shoham and some other Hebrew dictionaries. And you have to go through a lot of sources, unfortunately, to find understanding. But listen, let's just work and understand what these roots are. Roots is a concept, all right? It's a concept that deals with the fact of an idea, okay? So here the idea is going to be the idea of work. Now work obviously has many different concepts. You have physical actions of work, you have the concept of work, you have specifications of work, you have the what's the other words you could say? You have the physical movement and the aggressive, I'm trying to think of the word to use it for, like to toil, things like that. The things that express the attitude of the harshness and the difficulty. There you go. Of work. Okay. So here we have this word that's connected to these different roots. Okay, because they all have something in common. They all have to do with the concept of work. Okay, so think of work. Work is a very conceptually based word, okay, in English, because we can use it in a lot of different ways, okay? Well, we have to learn to take Hebrew and use it in the ways that it's meaning, and also in a lot of the ways that it wants you to understand, okay? So here, let's take this word. This is a really butchered word for one thing. Lamed Aleph Chaf Safit, okay? This word literally means a goal-oriented task. To do a goal-oriented task, okay? So when I get the word malacha, okay, which is what we see in the Torah when it says, and you should not perform malacha on Shabbat, okay? Malacha literally means a task that is goal-oriented, okay? It's the conceptual idea of saying basically a specific work that performs a specific function and result, okay? So like weaving would be considered a malacha. Trapping would be considered a malacha. Sewing would be considered a malacha. Forging metals would be considered a malacha. Because this is a goal-oriented task. It's a task that functions in a way which produces a specific result, okay? And to translate this work is like just butchering Hebrew, okay? And this is what we don't want to do. We want to keep and know what Hebrew is, what's it all about, okay? The next word we're going to look at is the word bana. Bana means to build, okay? To construct, all right? So when we look at bana, we have to understand that it's talking about taking materials, bringing them and using them together in order to construct something. So for example, the Torah utilizes the word bana with regard to the creation of Chava, okay? Chava was bana, she was built, she was constructed. God says he took her and he took things and he constructed and put her together. So bana is a concept that we can use with building houses. It could be used for building a computer. It's used with the concept of taking different elements and pieces and constructing them to create something different out of it. Okay? Asa. Asa is the root word, which has to do with performing, doing, and making. Okay? So we have to kind of put all of these different words into the play because we need to get the general idea of what asa means. Okay? So this performing, doing, making can be used in the concept, for example, ma'aseh. Ma'aseh, these are the things that I do that has to do with the things that I'm doing. Like, the Torah says you're not allowed to do any ma'aseh, any form of work on the Sabbath. Well, this ma'aseh is not the same as this, right? This, la'ach, this is talking about a goal-oriented task. So we're talking about weaving, things that produce something once it's got to its finished goal, okay? Asa, this has to do with things like, stuff that I'm involved in, things that I'm doing that has not any kind of goal-oriented aspect to it. So this is the kind of like busybody work that we do during the week, okay? And so this is important to understand because it's talking about doing and performing things that I functionally do and perform or take care of, whatever in that nature, okay? And this is important to understand this word, okay, and understand the concept, okay? Now let's go to this root, okay? Shin Resh Tav, okay? This word has to do with the meaning of attending and helping, okay? Now it's not the word help like as if, can you help me? It has to do with attending to others in a task, okay? So we get the word masheret from this word, which literally means one who attends to somebody in performing a task. And so we find, like, for example, Joshua ben Nun, that he was the Masheret of Moshe. He was like the right-hand man of Moshe who helped him do the different tasks that Moshe was involved in, okay? So this, we have to understand the concepts. They're all different. You all can see that they have the concept of work, but they all have a different thing. The next one we have the word pa'al. Pa'al means to act or to do or to perform, okay? And this is acting as in the fact of, like, the work a person is a part of, that he's a physical actions. This is what it's really focusing on, is upon the physical actions of doings, okay? Here, you have the word yaga. Okay, yaga is the conceptual meaning that has to do with the toil. This is where we get words like toil and difficult. It's expressing the exertion of the work, okay? So this yaga is the difficult exertion of work that's being performed, okay? Then we have avad. Avad. What is avad? Avad means to work under the subjection of someone. And so when we get, for example, with the word avad, the working under subjection, this is where we get the two words. One is avodah, which is like when you talk about going to work under somebody or to work for somebody, and in which you're under, his requirement of what he wants you to do, and he's got you. You're kind of his slave in a sense, all right? And then we have the word eved, which literally means a slave, to be somebody who's under the subjection of a master, who's required to do the things that the master wants, right? So eved, okay, this is where we get the word eved from, all right? Then lastly we have here, we have the yagav, okay? Yagav means to plow or till, to dig and to pull up and to grind through the dirt, okay? So we have a physical form of action of what this is specifically forming at. We have the action of attending and helping. We have the action of taking objects and putting them together to construct things. We have the actions that deal with the servitude and subjectionness, the actions of difficulty, the harshness of working, just the action of doing. We have the act of performing a goal-oriented task, and then we had the act of just merely working and doing and making, okay? And this is what happens when we're taking these roots. We have to understand these roots. We want to take all of these roots, and then when we look at the roots and really grasp it in our head, that's where we want to go, and then look at the word binyan. Binyan. Binyan is something that was built. It's a structure. That makes sense that it comes from the word bana. But then you have some words that may not make sense, okay? Like, what is the word for son? It's ben. Well, it comes from banan. What is the word for daughter? It's bat. It comes from banan. What does this have to do? Well, the Torah is talking about the construction of the home, okay? Now we understand the fact of, in Hebrew thinking, we have to think this way. Nouns do not have a name. Nouns have a function, okay? Everything in Hebrew is about function. What is the function of this object? That's how we describe something in Hebrew. We don't describe something like the idiot version of English where you just place a title. We call that a thingamajig or a jinglewob. It doesn't make any sense, right? In Hebrew, there's a function behind it. And that function is describing what this is. And that's why it's so important to take the roots. And when we understand the roots, we then take what is this title of function that is being placed upon this. Because that's what this means. We're taking the root word and we're taking the function of what this thing is, and we're creating from that a noun. And that noun is creating the title that basically everything in Hebrew, if you really want to understand it, is based upon action. Everything. So why do you call this a that? Is because what's the function of that? Okay? It's not based upon, we're going to call that a fuzzy thingamawob. That's not what we're saying in Hebrew. In Hebrew, we're saying, well, what does it do? How does it function? What is the characteristics of it? And then from that, we take from this root and we create it within that root, and therefore we can see the function. I hope this really helped you with learning verbs, specifically with learning roots, okay? Because when learning roots, we have to really understand that if we're going to use the dictionaries, if we're going to actually go in there and actually really understand a word, we have to really first understand the roots. And honestly, tell me, I'm being serious. You gotta buy tons of books just to get to that point. And that's why I suggest, if you really want to understand roots, you have to buy more than one dictionary. You really do. You gotta, because some guys, they have a hard time explaining something, and then you have to go over here and then you want to be able to find the full essence of this. And so there's a good dictionary you can look for. It's called the Hirsch's Root Dictionary. You can find it online. But I suggest that you really spend a lot of time really understanding the concept of the root before you try to understand the noun. Because remember, the noun is going to be based upon the function and the action. It's not going to be based upon identity. You don't call an av a father, okay? You got to understand that av does not mean father in Hebrew. It doesn't. You think of it as in English, but it doesn't mean that. Av comes from the word, for example, ava, which means to submit or to be willing. So av is considered the one you submit and are willing to submit to, one you're willing to consent. Okay? So that's the concept of the function of what av is. Okay? Very different than what you think in English. All right? It's not what you think, right? And this is why when we put Hebrew thinking into our head, we begin to think just the way God entired us to do, just the way He planned us to do. Hope you enjoy this thing. We'll see you next time. We'll learn more about roots in Hebrew on my site.